So hello everyone, my name is Thomas. Some of you know me of course because I'm from Heidelberg. Some of you might know me from last year. I taught some classes last year. Today we want to go teach a class. I want to teach a class about Armbars. And Armbars sounds really boring, so I'm really happy that people showed up, because it's usually not the most sexy theme. People think it's like super basic and like they're much cooler submissions. But I've been spending a lot of time with Armbars the last few months. For different reasons, but one reason is that I think they are coming back now big because one trend I'm seeing is that people pass a lot with their, what I call it, hand first passing, right? Like Toyota passes where they're like, more with their hands forward. And for a while it was really popular to go like feet first passing, right? Where you step into guards and then you basically dismantle the individual guards. Now people try to avoid guards, they just pass on the outside with long arms, which really makes the arms available again. It's hard to get to the legs. Hence the name of the class is No Heel, No Problem. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but sometimes it's hard if you're like looking for leg locks. People, they hide their feet, they pass really long. It's hard to get to the legs, but the arms are more available. Right? So that's kind of the basis for the class. We go into a specific more sequence on the end where this becomes relevant. In the beginning, we just go to like a specific type of armbar, and then we combine this later with the plans to go over 3 armbars and how to combine them in this special sequence. And trying to go over some principles and stuff in between because we don't have too much time and I have so much that I want to teach. The first thing we do is what I call an elbow control armbar. Okay. I got introduced to this initially by, believe it or not, Eddie Cummings. And he did it. I visited him at Unity and he's known for his leg locks. But every time I try to pass him with an underhook, he got this armbar on me. And I couldn't understand it. I'm like, I try to go for the underhook and I'm getting armbar every time. So what's happening? Right? So actually let's turn this way because this is my better side. So the basic idea of an elbow control armbar is there's many setups, but one good setup is every time someone dives for an underhook, which might be from here where he goes for like a body lock pass. Right? This could be a good thing. Or it could also be from like a half guard, where he has his hand here, dives for underhooks here. Every time they go for an underhook, this one becomes relevant. And for now, we just do it from butterfly guard against, let's say, they dive for a body lock pass. Right? There's a few things I need. I need to get some separation between his hand and his head. Right? So ideally, he wants to dive in hand and head at the same time. Right? But I want to separate him slightly, and I can do this by several things, but 2 main ones. One is I use this cross collar tie. This would be a regular collar tie. This cross collar tie, or I use a foot on his hip. But this is more powerful. But if you have both, that's ideal. If you have one, that should do the trick. Right? So when he dives in for his underhook, I block him and I grab his elbow in a specific way. I will shortly explain to you. And then we fall actually back, so we don't resist him. We fall back with him and try to get this elbow right onto our hip. Right? So his elbow is right into our hip. Actually, not the inside of our hip, but like right where your hip bone is, where it's like really bony here on the outside. Right? That's where you want to be. And then from here, there's a few things you want to do to finish the armbar. One common mistake would be just to hip in this direction, which pushes him out into like an omoplata type situation. You could follow him with omoplatas, but we want the armbar right away. Because he could escape and there are a lot of steps in between.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Yes, I do my best to speak louder. Okay. Okay, so what we want to do is I want to keep him relatively vertical, so I don't want him to allow to go this way. And one thing we do is we use this grip. I pull him outside with this grip, so if he tries to go this way, his elbow has difficulty rotating, right? He wants to rotate out here. I want to stop this. And the other thing I do is I bring my body towards the elbow that I'm breaking, right? So in this type of alignment. I don't want to be over here. I want to be flat and close to the elbow. So I'm crunching in this direction, and then we hip up, right? And it comes very fast. If you have it tight, it comes crazy fast, so do it slowly in the beginning. If you don't have it properly, it's hard to get it all. So if I'm too high, let's say you see my hip is far away from his elbow here, I can hip in all day. It's very hard to get, right? Also, of course, if I'm over his elbow here, like I can hip in all day, I don't get it, right? So I want this elbow right on my hip bone here, right? And my hand, I use my hand in a specific way. I grab his elbow, but not just like in any way or fashion. You want to actually get the flat part of your wrist or of your hand right between, like he has 2 bones, right? The ulna and radius of his arm. And you want to get them where they are flat. Like, so when you feel here it's like round, there's just one bone, but here's round, there's another bone. But there's a spot here, right here on the outside, where the bones are like this, and you have this flat surface, right? That's where you want to go. Now it's much harder for him to rotate the elbow. If I want the round part here, he can rotate pretty easily, right? But if I want the flat part, now it's pretty hard. Okay? So that's kind of important, right? You want to catch him right there, and then focus on this pressure. So I'm not squeezing too much with my hands. I'm mainly focusing on this pressure with my hands. You can squeeze a little bit, but the main thing is have this, right? So I have this without my foot. I have this type of position, right? So if he tries to rotate, it's not that easy, right? If he goes full force here without my legs and everything, he could get it, but this is pretty hard, right? The other part is my foot. My foot is pushing him away, which doesn't allow him to posture. It breaks his posture. If he tries to posture up, right, like this, you see how his head and hip have to come together. Right? But if I push him away with my feet on his hip can't come underneath his head, right? So it's really hard to stand up, right? So it's kind of like if you try to stand up from here, right? That's will fall. So here you can't step up like this, right? You have to do either this, right? Or in this case, you want to like walk forward with your feet. And so I'm pushing away his hips. Right? As long as his hips are pushed away, it's really hard for him to stand up, which is main defense here, right? Main defense would be I'm not pushing him properly. He walks up, he stacks me, now he goes into passing. Okay? This is really important. I'm blocking him here with my feet. Ideally, I have feet on both hips. There are a lot of other details you can do here. If you get over here, of course, that's like almost a triangle. This is the most powerful one. But even here is great. You can have your shin here. That's great. A lot of times I have my knee on the far side of his head and pinch the knees together. Okay? Because now if he tries to go there, his head is blocked. If you try to go towards omoplata, yeah, this is really hard, right? His head is blocked. If he tries to go up, it's also hard because I'm pushing on his hip. Okay? And here you're really stuck. And you see his elbow is right on my hip. It's not here, it's not here, it's like right on the hip bone, which is usually a little bit higher than you think. If you actually feel your hip, a lot of people think the hip is here, but here it's soft. It's just like your thigh bone. It's like here, right? Where it's like super bony. Okay? Ideally, every armbar, you want to get over this super hard hip bone. That's the goal. And the thing that's probably hardest to understand in the beginning is that you rotate this way. Because usually it's hard, it's bad to be flat in Jiu-Jitsu. It's always like here on this side, here on this side. And you can finish it sideways, but it's much easier for you to basically go into this omoplata, right? And then I have to chase it with other styles of armbars or actual omoplatas. So I want to be super flat. I'm flat, I can even a little bit overcompensate in this direction, right? So now if he tries to go this way, it's hard. But if he tries to go this way, there's nothing to gain. Right? It just makes the armbar harder, stronger. Okay? And then only in the end, I bridge up. Right? So in the beginning, I just do the side crunch. Very similar to a guillotine. If you have a guillotine, do the side crunch. Right? It's quite similar to the guillotine, like side crunch. And the side crunch can already finish him. If you have good positioning, do it slow, especially if you don't have feeling for this. You don't want to go too far because I can finish it. Just with side. No, my hips are completely inactive, right? But then you bridge in for the maximum force. Okay? No, it's a lot. So just the best things. We start in butterfly guard. You can also, to make it easy, you can already start here. Of course, it would be bad for him to dive for underhooks if I have my feet here, but you can do it just to make it easier. More realistically, we're here. I don't have feet on his hip. He comes in, I block him, I push him here, and then I fall back. I fall back and I place the elbow exactly on the spot that we talked about. If you land sideways, a lot of times you will land sideways here. Just make sure that you come back. Come back here. If you can keep the forehand, that's even better. But if you can't keep the forehand, you can do other things. You can hold his head. Or sometimes I push on the inside of his arm. That makes it even harder for him to turn out. Because the turnout is the main problem we have here, right? I don't want him to turn out, so I push to the inside, this bump on his elbow here, push this direction. So I have two forces, one on the bottom and one on the top here. Now if he tries to turn out, it's crazy hard, right? And then you can just slowly bridge out, okay? So just start with this armbar, and then later we combine this with a few other okay? And this, like I said, it's pretty universal. We do it just from this spot, and later we do it against standing passes. But you can also do the same thing when people do, let's say in half guard, and they do this type of position, right? They do this a lot. So when you're here, you can reel them in, right here. You can use different types of grips, but this is always the same idea. Every time someone's here looking for underhooks, this is quite available, right? Pressure too. For what we do later, it makes more sense to do butterfly. Okay? So here, I come in, I block him here. Or if you're quick with your feet, you can right away just go on with the foot. You can even forego this cross collar type. Then just come back, straight, and then hit up slow. Okay? And really be careful because it does come on pretty strong. Questions?
You won the arm in any position or?
Oh yeah, the hand. So okay, I don't want to go too long, but ideally I want him super high in my armpit. Okay, this is the tightest one. If I have him here, now he can't pull out, right? But if everything's in place, it's not that important. If my hands and my leg base, even if he's quite low here, it still works pretty fine. If he tries to pull out, once I have pressure on, it's hard. right? But in between, it could be here, he could pull out easier than if I have him here, right? So there are other setups where this becomes important, where we first catch here, and then we come in like this, right? So higher is better, but sometimes it's hard when they dive in, because they dive in really low. They usually don't dive in here for their body lock, they dive in low. So it's kind of like hard to pull them up, and you feel somewhere in between. But you always want to pinch the elbow. Doesn't matter where it is, always bring the elbow to your body. Sweet. Any questions? Okay, let's go. 1, 2.
Kannst du mal ein bisschen wackeln oder gucken, was hier geht? Aber hier musst du auch nicht switchen, du darfst auch switchen.
Any questions that I couldn't get to? Questions? Okay. So the main problem people were asking about, which is expected because that is the main problem of the whole position, is how do I stop the person from turning out, right? Because yeah, I try. Sorry. It's hard to have like 360 degrees voice. Okay, I'm just screaming in his face. Okay, so the main problem is that he turns out. Right? So he turns out like this. Yeah, we ideally want to prevent this. There are a lot of cool follow-ups here, but it's not what we're going into now, because we want to you see what we're doing. We combine it with other positions, but we mainly prevent this by like scooping this under, right? So this one is actually scooping, right? So if I do it without my leg, so you see it, I'm scooping it like this. Right? And you want to find this flat spot. If you don't have the flat spot, it's really hard to hold him. If I'm just like here and he just turns, there's no chance for me to hold him. But if you find like this part of your hand right onto this flat spot on his elbow, now we have a chance. And I'm scooping underneath. Plus I have a lot of, I can hold his head. I can use my knee on his head, which stops him from turning out. If I lose his head on this side, I can have my knee on the inside of his shoulder, right? That's actually how Eddie caught me. He always did this, kind of like a single X or ashigarami on the arm. It's the exact same position, just on the arm. Right? This is very powerful too. There are a lot of different variations. You just want to be aware, can I stop them from posturing? And can I keep them away from, stop them from turning out? Okay? And if they posture, so the actual problem is he comes up and he pulls to the top, right? He pulls, yeah, this is the problem, right? If they just lift their butt, that's not the end of the world. Okay? Some people ask this. If he just lifts his butt, but I keep his butt away, right, like this, he can't really stand up, right? If he tries to stand up or pull out here, it's really hard. I can easily finish here, right? Probably even stronger because my feet are higher, right? At least as strong. Okay? So those are the main things. So the next thing we do is we incorporate this in to the actual sequence we try to get to. See how far we come. So, like I said, the thing is, a lot of people start outside passing. And what he tries to do is he gets his grips on my shins, he walks over, right? Then maybe he switches grips or he pulls me to the side. A lot of ways to finish the pass. But the main thing he's passing hand first. Right? So his feet are farther away. I can't get any easy leg entanglement or like De La Riva guard. He's like, his head and hands are forward and his feet are further away. Okay. And this type of passing, of course, is annoying. We can just defend it or we can look to counter it. And one good way to counter it that I found is actually with armbars, because the arms are right there. Okay? And the grips I like to use here is use this outside rotated grip. Right? Because he comes around, very commonly people do this. Right? So the hands like this, my thumb is on the inside. If I'm like this, it's less efficient because my elbow's away from my body. And also it gives him armbar options, right? He could slide in with his far leg, right, and catch me with armbars here, right? Which happened to me once, an important match. Okay, still hurts. Don't mention it. Okay, so the better option is I'm rotating my grip, so my elbow comes tight to my body. But actually, let's see on the camera stuff. Okay, so when he comes over, instead of going like this, I come like this. So my thumb is on the outside, and my elbow is nice and tight. And this is actually pretty sticky grip. If he tries to push through it or like do something, right, this is super strong. This gets actually quite weak, right? If you push here, you see how this is like super weak, and right, this is quite strong, right? So if you push in here, you can hold a lot of force. If he comes in here, I can hold a lot of force, right? Not that I want to, but just to demonstrate. Okay. But the main thing here that we want to do is this push-pull effect. So I'm pushing on this side, and then I'm grabbing his elbow and pulling him like this. Okay. And it works pretty well if you do it together, right? So he's coming in, and I'm doing this push-pull while I'm basing. You see, my right foot is basing on his body, either on his chest. Sometimes I can get straight to the hip, but I want to have some base or some frame here between us, right? Because I have nothing here with my legs. Now it's all on my arms, and again, my arms are in danger. But if I have my foot in here as a frame, now it's really hard for them to get it. And then from here, the free leg, the outside leg, finds his hip, and I swivel back to the same position we were in. And I can finish it from here, just like we did on the bottom. I swivel to the side and then hip up, right? It's the exact same thing. And I have pressure on his hip. His hip is in the air, but he can't fully stand up. He tries to bring his head up and will pull out. It's really hard, right? If you feel like it's too slippery or something, you can also hold his head. That's good. Ideally, it's always to have the far hand. To have the far hand, that's the best option. If I can keep it from here, like this, that's if you try to palm it out here, it's not even that easy, you know. But if you lose it, one good option is to go to the head, or go to the grip I showed you before, where you push on the inside of the elbow, makes it better. And then always bring your hips up. Your hips should never be here, right? This is like very, very loose. I want to be hip up like this, right? Then sideways, and then use your left, or in this case, my left and my outside hip, to push in like this, right? Okay, so you're here, you swivel, and then you do like this. Hip push, bridge. Okay, so one more time. Okay. So again, he's coming. Doing this push pull, and you have to do the push pull because you want to frame here, so he can't get get a crossface and come closer, and also helps to rotate the shoulder in this direction. Okay, so I want to rotate the shoulders like this, where the near shoulder goes away, and then the far one that I want to attack here is basically coming closer. Okay, again, it's coming over. I push pull, and I frame. You see how my foot is here? It's framing. So if he tries to smash me or something here, it's not easy, right? Because my foot is in the way. And then I find his hip with my foot and rotate my entire body. Why my hip is in the air? My hip is in the air all the time. It has to be really high. Okay? And then from here, like I said, you can grab the foot. Ideally, you always want to keep this one. If you can keep this, that's perfect. And then from here, do the same finish as before. Okay? Last time. Or we can try to show it on the retest side. Okay, maybe one time retest side. Maybe have someone. Okay, so here you do the same thing. Find his hip. Come over here. Lost his hip. Okay, here and then just push him. This push him here. Hold his head. All fine. Okay. Just make sure that you're vertical. Okay, you don't want to be here. Okay, this is pretty bad. I'm pretty vulnerable here to be side smashed. Or I also don't want to be like hip down. Of course, that's horrible. You can pummel in legs and all this stuff. But you want to be nice. You see how high my hip is. Hip's super high. Okay. Makes sense? Any questions or want to see it again?
I have one question.
Yes.
Where's the for the submission you have to control, and for control you need to use a lot of force maybe, but you cannot use a lot of force with this submission because it's so straight, so close, so there is so little gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where is the point where you can strongly, firmly have control, and then you go little?
Yeah, it does take some experience because, like you said, the window before the submission comes is really, really short, right? For me, it helps a lot to not overemphasize the bridge and go sideways first. And once you're here, it's pretty tight, and then you can slowly bridge in, right? In this case, it sounds weird because you already bridged, but you're not bridging extra. So what I mean by that is, when I'm here, right, he comes over, I come in here, and I do all this pretty quickly. This you can do pretty quickly. Here's not that much that could happen, but then I slowly do the extra bridge, where I bring my left outside hip here in and bridge like this.
For this position, what's the most used muscle to control him without submitting him now?
The most control, let me think. So he comes in, I pull him here. So it's the push. Like one thing is he's out of base, right? Because his head is in front of his hips. So he's a little bit out of base. So I don't need that much force, let's say, to control him. And I also use this push-pull. So this one actually goes away. This one comes near. And then it's this grip. You know, on one, it's this grip. And once I got my foot on his hip, it's this, I'm basically hanging myself onto him. Because I'm hanging on him. Even if he tries to pull out here, he's lifting my entire body weight, right? I'm hanging on him. So it's this grip plus the pinch of this one that basically connects me. Oh, this one too, right? That connects me to him. So it's really hard to pull me up because my hip is up. My hip is here. Now it's just, like you said, the muscles, the arm muscles, it's really hard to hold him. But I'm hanging my entire weight on him, right? And my foot is having too. My leg is having too. Okay? Yeah, it's also just like he's in a bad position, right? Because he's here, you don't need that much, right? You don't need that crazy amount of force, right? If you try to control him like underneath and he's like here, now he can pull really strong. But if he's here, he doesn't have that much pull. You would just test it out and then, okay. Other questions? If he pulls out, it's not the end of the world either. We actually do this later, right? If he pulls out, we can go to the other arm, or you can go to the legs. There's options. Okay. All right, let's go. 1, 2. Okay, any open questions that I couldn't get to? Questions? Yeah, it is timing sensitive. Yeah. It is timing sensitive, and you want to do it as early as possible. You don't want to wait until they go, let's say they go to north-south or something, right? If I'm waiting here too long, now it's too late, right? So you want to do it early, and you especially want to do it when you feel them giving you pressure, which they have to do, right? It's really hard to pass it without any pressure, right? If it just like walks around here, I can do, a million things. No, there's no problem. But if he gives you pressure, right? I feel his pressure, right? And then if we do the rotation, that's where a lot of questions came up. That's what makes him fall into this hole, right? Because if I'm just here, let's say I get this arm out of the way, however I do it, and this one, his arm is so far away, I will never get there, right? But if he's giving me pressure, and I force him into this rotation, you see how this shoulder drops, so I push this one up, right? So he's basically basing on me, and then I remove this one, and his shoulders rotate like this. And this one slips too, because I'm pulling him, right? So he's having a lot of pressure on this one, and then I pull it, like so, right? And it works really well if you get pressure. So they come in, right? And as soon as it's available, I give him pressure like this, right? And then you spin, you basically spin underneath, so you get this flat angle, right? Where you're right in front of him, not like on the side here, and your armpit does a lot of the holding power, right? It gives a lot of force. Here it's pretty weak. Here you can pull out, right? But as soon as I spin over here, now it's getting super tight. And like I said, if you overspin, you can even finish from here, or you can just come up. Okay? And the moment you want to do this as early as possible, right? You don't wait for anything specific. As soon as this is in reach, you take it, right? So he's coming in, and as soon as I get this in reach, I want to take it and come up. Right? And if I get the higher I get, the better. And I always want to emphasize this elbow has to be on my hip. You see how this elbow is right on my hip. Right? If I'm too low here, you can't get it, right? You're straining. If you're ever straining with the submission, something's wrong. Either the elbow's gone, or opponent is gone, maybe. But you shouldn't strain. If it's on your hip, this is like super easy to finish, even if she's resisting. Like it's even strong people. This is pretty easy to finish, right? It's so strong. Okay? But it has to be precise. You want to really like get to know your body. Feel where this hip bone is, right? This hip bone where it's nice and hard. That's right where you want it. Right? If you're most of the time the mistake that I made for a long time is being too far on the inside here, which is okay, but it's soft, right? But if you're right on the hip, and that's for every armbar, right? Even the most basic armbars on the side here, you can finish it on most of the spots. Of course, you can finish it on the inside of the hip too. But if you find the hip bone on the top here, it comes so quickly. Right? So this is always something to keep in mind.
I have a question. Once you start moving, you always keep the contact between your feet and his hip, right?
Yes,
So you
for
don't
this
lose
one,
the
I
foot.
need the foot. I need
You
the
don't
frame.
lose the foot. I think it's the first key. You have to keep the foot.
Yeah.
So it's weight control, right?
Yeah, so one thing in guard retention is we always try to point our feet to him, right? So I want to, like some people say, like you have eyes in your feet, right? You want to always have them look at him, right? So when he moves to the side, I still have my feet on him, right? So when he comes in for the Toyota pass, I still look at him, right? I look at his chest here. If I lose it, we talked about this shortly, right? But ideally I have this here, especially for the okay, here. Sometimes you have it right on his hip already, right? There's different frames you can do. You can even go frames here. I call it the reverse shoulder takeout. Okay, but there are different frames. But you need some type of frame. Okay, and most of the time you have it on his chest. Okay, but that's as far as you can get because he's trying to push you over here. Right? If you wait too long, you can't get it at all. Right? But if you're early enough, you can bring it to his chest. Right? So he's here. I get it on his chest, and I pull it in, and then it slides from his chest to his hip, and then I have a nice, nice point to elevate off. Okay, we have to move because I will skip one move. And then we go to the last move because it's getting too tight. So from here, there's a few things that could go wrong. Okay, so one thing is I come in here and I get my nice armbar, but either I don't get the foot on his hip or he pushes it off in time. Right? He has to do it pretty early, but if he does it in time, this happens, right? From here, there's a few ways to proceed. One is frame on this foot or get under his knee, pull myself on the knee, and use my shin into his armpit and my foot over his head and pull him to his head. Right? So he's basically swept. Right? From here we can follow the armbar. This one's a little bit susceptible to hitchhiker escapes because of this side of my body. I don't have anything in front of his head. Right? It's a little bit susceptible. So you can either try to bring him over. You can try to come over his hip. Right now he can't hitchhiker. You can try to hold his arm. Now he can't hitchhiker. Right? There's many ways to deal with the hitchhiker, but you just have to be aware in this one. Or he does the hitchhiker and you switch to like another form of armbar. Right? You go to like a choy bar here. But this is one option. We skip this one. We go to the final one where we go straight to this choy bar or underhook armbar or too many names for it. Half a minute just because it's I think belly down armbar. Yeah, very nice. Okay, but the idea is I do the same thing here, right? But I missed this arm, and a lot of times what happens is he's basing on you, and now he's pulling this arm out, right? But I still have this grip, and the free arm, free hand, pushing his hand into like an Americana position. So I want this hand over here, which allows me to bring my leg over the top and push his shoulder down to the floor. Okay, the exact same entry you can do from many situations. Right? I call this the Mikey grip because Mikey Musumeci uses this one a lot, where you basically go for an underhook, and instead of just clamping, which is cool, it's a good grip, right? But sometimes when you enter, they re-pummel right away. Right? Yeah, pummel away, and you lose the underhook, right? So I'm here, right? He re-pummels, and I lose him. So one thing we can do, we use this cross grip over here. Now he can re-pummel, right? Now we have more time, right? This is basically what we do. We get this underhook, and we get this cross grip over here. Now we can re-pummel, and you have time to go into your armpit, for all sorts of things. Okay? And in this case, for armbars. So that's exactly what we do, right? He's coming over. I do my attempt. I'm trying to get here, but I lose this. Yeah, he's pushing this foot down, or I couldn't get it in the first place. Right? I'm trying to get him up here. I couldn't get it in the first place, and he's framing, and I'm using this grip like so. You see, I still have this grip, pushing his elbow in one direction, and this one is forcing his arm like this. The straighter his arm, the better it's for him to pull out. I want to have him there, and then as quick as I can push. I make it look really slow now, but you'll see it's going pretty quickly. This outside foot is chopping into his armpit, and I'm pushing towards his head. It's not the strongest movement biomechanically, but it's so strong because he has no base in front, right? So technically it's not that strong, the force I produce, but it's very efficient because there's no base here. So if I'm pushing him down here, right, there's nothing in front of him, so it just falls towards his face, right? Unless he has like antlers or something, he can't hold himself there. Right? So he's falling down, and then from here we can go to different versions of belly down armbar or Choi bar, as Lachman calls it. Right, where you can go here, you can either finish double push grip, you can finish lat armbar here, right? You can go push pull, number of ways, but you want to push to the upper hip. Right? On the lower hip, it's really hard to finish. It's always hard to finish with the lower hip, and the angle is weird here, and it's also pretty weak, and I'm running out of space. So always go to the upper hip here. Okay? So how it actually looks in action is we come over here, I miss him here, I catch this one, and I chop him down like this. He might also roll, right? It also could be that you're doing it too forcefully, and he just rolls, and you go to your more traditional armbar here. Do this type of stuff. Okay? But the main thing is to force this arm into the Americana type position, and then chop over your leg and push him basically on his face. Okay? It's very similar stuff you can do with omoplatas that I got from Aaron Milan, and this is basically the same concept I stole for Armbars. So we're here, and then from here I just chop over, and don't push down because he's strong down. I want to push his head in this direction, right? So like this, right? Force his head down to the mat where he has no base, so it's pretty easy to get him down. And from here, go both hands to the wrist, push him to the top hip. Either you can go double push grip. I like this one. This is from Rafa Mendes. He uses this a lot. Or you can go lat armbar like this. Okay, there's a lot of good options. Ideally, my bottom leg shouldn't be here where it is. It should either be on his near hip. This is cool. You can go like in the K-guard type position. This is cool too. You can go all the way to his far armpit, which gives you like triangle backups, which is also cool. Okay, but you don't want to have the foot like here dangling between his feet because now you can push over and now it's just really hard to finish. Okay. One last time. So again, he's coming over here. I didn't get the foot in the first place, or I get it, and then he removes it. So maybe I could even be all the way here. I could be close to the finish. Usually you should get it, but maybe I'm missing it. He's pushing out. I'm catching this arm right away, doing this push-pull motion for the Americana, and then chop him down. And that just keep his arm really nice and tight to me. Also stretch your upper body. You don't want to be rounded here towards his feet. Then he steps over, and you have to deal with all this type of stuff. Right? Come on. But if you're doing this, like extension, no, it's hard for him to step over. Right? You can roll him. You can do a lot of cool follow-ups. Okay, so the main points are just this push-pull grip, and then chop over and kick him towards his head. Okay? If it was too much information. Okay. Any questions?
Can you show it from butterfly guard? The same movement? Just said
the same? Yeah. The underhook entry is the same, basically, right? So let's say we're here in butterfly guard, and I open him up a little bit, and then I do this. Right? Instead of just punching in the underhook, and he might re-pummel before I can cinch it in, right? Once I push the underhook, I basically come to his palm here. Right? Sometimes you're on the elbow, ideally here. Sometimes if you do it from like a half guard scenario, you're even like on his wrist. here, even on his wrist, right? Then you can come in here, and then you can go to stuff there. Okay, it's just the idea of blocking his arm from repummeling, right? So he can't repummel.
And from here you swing the left leg.
From here, yeah, for the choy bar, we would like base on here and then jump over here and then go to the top hip. Nice. Well, let's try before time's over. Okay, 1, 2. Any last question? What is the last question? Okay, nice. Okay. I know it's a lot. Even if it's too much for you, just take some parts out of this thing, right? So one thing is you learn this elbow control armbar, which is super helpful every time someone wants to get an underhook, right? So you can really make it hard for people to get proper underhooks. It's always a risk, right? They can't just like shoot for underhooks, like, if I don't get it, I'll do it again. It's a risk. They're like, either I get the nice underhook entry where everything's almost perfect, or I get in danger of being armored. So you want to put this into them, which then makes them do less underhooks, which makes it very hard to do proper passing. That's one thing, right? So you have this armor, and it has a lot of applications. And the other thing is this frame. I love this frame a lot. You can use it from all sorts of positions, but this is one case, right, where he's standing, he's coming over here, and you frame with this. It's much stronger and gives you much better, tighter guard than doing this, right, and being open here. So this is really advantageous here, right? And then also this kind of cross grip from Mikey. This is super helpful in all sorts of situations, and this one particularly, because I don't want it to pull out, right? A lot of people had the question here. Of course, he can try to pull out, which he likely will do. So I want to hold him just shortly, like by pushing his arm into this Kimura type position, right? And you can't finish him here. Don't try to Kimura, like Kimura you. But you just do this quickly, so he's, it breaks his posture a little bit and makes it just a little bit harder to pull out, right? If I'm just here, he can pull out pretty quickly, right? But if I'm pushing him in here, it takes a little bit longer, right? And you just need this little moment. So, once you land here, you miss your foot, you instantly replace him with this. Once I'm here, I'm good, right? Once the foot is in, I'm good. And then I want not to be too close to his hip, but arching away, right? Where it's hard for him to step over me. If he tries to step over me, I can also use the pressure into his armpit to force him over and then finish from there. Like there's so much follow-up material. But just those things, there. And if you're a beginner, this is helpful, right? Counter the underhook with the elbow control armbar, and use the frame like this. And
The technique only works if he stays. If he keeps walking,
yeah.
you can't hold him, right?
If he's standing, you mean?
Let's say you pass your guard,
Yeah.
and he keeps walking. He keeps walking.
Yeah. This happens a lot. Yeah. So you come in here and he keeps walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you always wanna while he's over you, he's super vulnerable in this direction because there's no base. Then you bump him forward. Right? Of course, you miss it entirely. You're just here and he comes there. You can switch to other attacks.
You swap his right arm.
Yeah. But ideally, if he's here and he keeps walking and you're in here, right? This is perfect. Because now I'm super strong in this direction. My body extends. He has no base over there, right? So this is super strong. Punch him down, right? And then either go for your armor or come into back attacks. There's so many follow-ups. Sometimes you flop over. You just use it as a sweep. There's many follow-ups. It's not like always this happens. It's just like the most common scenario you get. All right, then thanks for coming. I have another class on Friday, I think, same time, on crab rides and bolos, which kind of builds on the one from last year if you were there, but also you can come if you weren't there. It's still helpful. Yeah, and if you have any questions, most of the time I will be over there on the drilling area and drilling, but you can always come ask me about armbars or other stuff, whatever you want to do. And thanks for coming. Thank you.